Good evening. I am Kamau Kujichagulia, and this is On the Case with Kamau Kujichagulia, where each week we talk with a very wonderful person about who's doing a lot of things here in New Jersey or in Trenton or around the nation or somewhere around the world. Doesn't matter as long as it's a good person doing good work, and there are just so many people doing good work right around our area, and that you just never hear about. But their work continues on, and they do it in silence, or as much as they can. And we just want you to meet some of these people who are doing some work. Today we're going to have a wonderful person. Good evening, Dana Harmon. How are you? Charlene Walker, who is the executive director at Faith in New Jersey, and we're going to have her on this evening. We had a few things happen here in the city of Trenton. One of them was that the Junior 1 burned down. Some of you all know it as the old Martin Luther King School. Well, old people know it as Junior 1. And it was a blight on our city for a long time. We should have done something with that building before. Remember earlier, Freedom Green had come on. He's working with the Trenton Housing Department. He said that they were planning on renovating it and turning it into senior citizen housing. I don't know whether that will still happen, but it's sad that that building was just left there for anybody to go in and out of. And I've heard stories of how kids, the new junior, not Junior 1, but the new Martin Luther King is right behind it. That how kids from that school would go up to Junior 1 and enter it and do whatever kids do. So and it was a place for homeless people. It was a place for all kinds of activities which really weren't necessary and shouldn't have happened. But we lost a great property, but maybe we'll gain an even greater property. So that's to be seen in the future. Also in the city, it's about time for pools to open. That's a good thing, and I love swimming pools here in the city. It still bothers me though that in the West Ward we don't have a swimming pool for our children or for our community. There's one in the north, east, south, but there's nothing out here in the West Ward, and we need a swimming pool every bit as much as everybody else. I always say that if I ever hit the lottery, one thing I do with it is build a swimming pool in West Trenton somewhere. So, but we do need a swimming pool. But it's good that the pools are about to open, and that means summer is almost here. That's a good thing. I don't know if you heard or not, we had been planning to have a Juneteenth parade, which we had to put on hold for this year because we didn't get the funding that we needed. It's just so expensive nowadays. When we first did parades, they were we did it for under $500, and now it's up to $35,000 because the city charges for everything. So we had to put that on hold until another time. So, but anyway, I want to talk with Ms. Walker about Faith in New Jersey. So let's bring her on and see how she's doing. Miss Charlene Walker,
hello.
Executive Director of Faith in New Jersey. How are you?
I am great. I actually just got back to New Jersey not too long ago, so I am super excited to be back. I took a little time off after doing some training in Georgia, actually. So I'm happy to be back.
So you were in Georgia?
Yes, I was in a on actually 100 acres of Black-owned maroon space with about 40 Black organizers from across the country. Like just really strategizing together and building together to really think about what does it mean to get Black folks free in this country and for us to be coordinated across the nation. So it was actually quite beautiful and lovely, and I'm so rejuvenated and happy to be back.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Before we get into faith, the mission and goals of Faith in New Jersey, for our viewers unfamiliar with you, who is Charlene Walker?
Who am I? So, believe it or not, I was born in the city of Trenton.
Really?
Yeah.
Trentonian.
But I did not grow up in Trenton. I was actually born in Trenton and placed for adoption at birth.
Okay.
So I went straight from Trenton, New Jersey, and went up the Parkway and ended up in Hillside, and ended up at a foster home with a lovely woman. Everybody calls Miss B. Slightly older, little Black woman, really petite. I like to say that I was so cute, she decided to keep me. So I was very lucky to grow up in a home like filled with so much love. And it was a house that actually, she did foster care until I was about 5th grade. So in that house, like I grew up with like people from all different ethnicities. At a time during the war on drugs was prevalent. So a lot of the kids that came in my house were affected by the war on drugs, being separated from their families because, crack epidemic was treated much differently than the way we see the opioid epidemic right now, right? Our families were torn apart. People were put into prison. They weren't offered treatment. And a lot of the kids ended up in foster care. So I grew up in that household. I loved my upbringing. Living in Hillside, though, I don't know how many people know it from Trenton, but it really sits right outside of the city of Newark. And my mother was one of those that left the city of Newark after the Newark riots or uprisings that happened, right? And made it into Hillside and was actually one of the first Black women that could not pass living in Hillside at the time, where actually her house, they tried to set the house on fire at the time. But Hillside remained very segregated during my upbringing. So I grew up in this small town, super segregated, went through like trying to desegregate the schools, which I'm young, but that actually happened during my 5th grade year, in a town that was over-policed. I went off to school in Syracuse, came home. I thought I was going to be an educator. Thought I was going to teach small children, and found my way actually to organizing eventually, which is a story we can get into, because honestly, like at the end of the day, when I really think about like who I am a Black woman that is very clear that this country has been set up in such a way that doesn't really treat Black women the way it needs to be treated, with love and respect. I've been impacted by all of the systems, unfortunately. I've lost loved ones due to gun violence, incarceration. The healthcare system took my mom as well as my own child. So I am here because of the treatment that I've got really clear occurred based to systems and structures, in hopes of like dismantling them so that we can all get to live in a world that loves us, right? And that treats us with respect and dignity that I know that the divine gave all of us. So that's just a little bit about who I am.
That's a little bit. That's a lot about who you are. Now, you said up in Hillside that your foster mom was one of the first women of color to move there who could not pass. What do you mean by that?
I'm still not sure about that.
There was a woman that actually lived on our block who had been passing. And my mother used to tell the story about how she went and knocked on the door and introduced herself. It was like, hey, I'm here in the neighborhood. How are you doing? And the woman was like, what are you doing here? And she's like, hey, I know you're a Black woman too. How are you? And the woman ever so nicely told her to never come back on her doorstep because she didn't want her to ruin a good thing at the time. Because she had just been able to get in because there was a lot of discrimination at the time. Even when my mother tried to buy the house, they had her jump through so many hoops in order to get the home, to the point where she had to get a lovely Italian man from the city of Newark to vouch that she had a second job, even though she had the income, just so that they would approve it. Yes, absolutely, Miss Dana. The most disrespected and unprotected in America, absolutely. So yeah, that's what ended up happening.
Huh. That's interesting. This is what year was this that you were up in Hillside, and they were desegregating the schools?
In the early 80s. So if you look up, there's actually a New York Times article about the township of Hillside in about the early 80s. What ended up happening was, because we know redlining had this huge impact on New Jersey, right? As across the country. So the way that Hillside had been redlined, it was very clear that you lived on certain sides of towns in certain places based off of your race. So there was a movement to desegregate the Hillside schools. And what they did was they did a lottery, and they had a couple of kids from different parts of town have to go to different schools. But it was only like a handful of kids. So there was I believe it was a lawsuit that happened, trying to force them to desegregate the schools. And what happened was they fought it all the way up to the New Jersey Supreme Court against it, right? And this is the 80s, right? So everybody's like, desegregation in the 80s, yes.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey. And then what ended up happening was they got called to desegregate the schools. So what they did was they split up our school district based off of the grade that you were in. So the school that was only a block and a half from where I grew up used to be a kindergarten through 8th grade school. They changed it to a 5th and 6th grade school so that all the 5th and 6th graders had to go to that school. And I'll never forget showing up at school, and there's news crews everywhere and a lot of really upset parents yelling and screaming, like, how dare I have to bring my kid here? And it didn't really click right away until I got into my classroom and sat down and was like, what is the big deal? We all looked around and all the kids were like, it's not all Black anymore. And that's how they went to desegregate it. But believe it or not, there's actually a lawsuit right now to further desegregate the schools across New Jersey, because the state of New Jersey has some of the most segregated school districts. So yeah, that was in the 80s, and we're still fighting today.
That's a shame. Now Now tell us what is Faith in New Jersey?
All right. So Faith in New Jersey, first of all, is part of the Faith in Action National Network, which is the largest faith-based organizing entity in the country. And we're also global now. So we also organize in Rwanda, Haiti, parts of Central and South America. And I believe we have another place that's opening in, I forget, there's another country in Africa that we're about to start organizing in. And what we do is, we're also part of that network, and also part of the Live Free National Network, which is a fabulous organization that is really grounded in organizing around ending gun violence in urban communities, decarceration or around incarceration, police violence, as well as around civic engagement. So as part of these networks, we organize everyday people of faith. So faith communities, it could be churches. We are multi-faith and multi-ethnic. So it could be a church, a mosque, a synagogue, as well as secular people who come in as individuals. We teach organizing skills, and then we help build power so that people can change their communities, either on the hyper-local, state, or federal level. So we're very busy.
You got a big job there, honey.
Yes.
Big job. Now, you said when you came, you went to Syracuse?
Yes.
Okay. when you came back to New Jersey, you wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah,
But
I was gonna do some early childhood education. My mother got extremely ill. She had a cough that would not go away. And she was going to the doctor, and they were continually giving her cough syrup until one day I went to the doctor with her, and I became what people would deem the angry Black woman, which honestly I am. I have every right to be angry about the way this world treats and disrespects Black women every day. And I told the doctor, hey, so you're not gonna give her a chest x-ray. And when they were like, oh, well, she doesn't need it, we'll give her this. I said, so can you write that on a prescription for me and tell me that you're refusing medical care to my mother right now? You're refusing to give her a chest x-ray, and I'll just take it to the next person. We immediately, all of a sudden, got a actual appointment to get a chest x-ray. And then we took her to go get the x-ray. I'm not even quite sure how long it took for us to get a telephone call that she had lung cancer, and it had advanced extremely far. And after that, she was only with us for about not even a full year. So I ended up losing her within a year's time. And at that time, I thought to myself, I wanted to do something different. I just wanted to help people and kind of like make the world a better place. I didn't quite know how. And I started doing work with people with developmental intellectual disabilities, as well as working in an organization that supported people who had aged out of the foster care system. And slowly I found my way into organizing, which is something I dabbled in when I was in high school. I organized my first campaign when I was a high school junior that actually won us a girls soccer team, as well as advanced placement classes in high school. But when I ended up working for this organization, I was doing great things, helping to pass policy. But it was important to me, and I was making a way, like helping people to like realize the things that they need, like advancing the salaries of workers that support people with disabilities, right? Which are primarily Black and brown women, extremely low paid. But then I ended up having a similar incident occur with myself, where I was pregnant at the time. I went into labor early. And when I went to the hospital, my whole family was out of the country. I went into the hospital and ended up delivering my son early. And the nurse tells me, well, there's not much we're going to do. The doctors are going to do, his lungs aren't developed enough. And it really like hit me that here I am sitting in the same space that my mother was in, of like no one really caring or really thinking much or listening to me as a Black woman at this time. That not long, about a month later, a friend of mine who was just as far along went to the same exact hospital, and she delivered her daughter. And she calls me up and she's like distraught, and she's telling me, I'm so sorry, they moved mountains basically for her to deliver her kid, and the only difference was that she was a white woman and I was a Black woman, and now her kid is here. And that made me kind of flip a switch and decide that I need to deeply organize, and really organize for the liberation of all of us through Black liberation. And that's how I found my path to Faith in New Jersey, and spending all of my time organizing with Faith in New Jersey outside of the organizing I was already doing.
Okay, I see. Now, back in the day, when you talk about Barack Obama being a community organizer, back then they used to use the mimeograph machine and have community meetings. And now with the internet and websites, has that changed any, or are you still doing it the same old way?
Well, I'm a relational organizer, so we believe that you build power and organize through relationships, right? So we do flyers, we do some social media, and I think that there are some people who have kind of cracked this nut of like, how do you translate people from online into in person to get them through the doors. But I believe the best organizing is through one-on-one conversations and the development of everyday people, much like Ella Baker did. And that I think is the most effective, and that actually helps you build power. Because like we're a power building organization at the end of the day, which is all about developing everyday people. And the only way you're really going to do that is being able to sit down and I share my story, a person shares theirs, and we find this shared interest around what are the things we need to change, and we commit to each other to build the power to do it. So social media has changed things. It helps get people in the street, I think, but the level of power building that we need has to extend beyond social media.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about your training process.
Oh, it's a lot. So
well, tell me a lot about it.
Well, our training is, like I mentioned, it's really based in building really solid relationships, right? And helping people to, one, realize, first of all, nobody can take your power from you. You are powerful, but you have to choose to walk in that power, right? And then after that, helping people to develop an analysis about what's happening. I always like to say some of the first things that we do is tell each other stories. A lot of times we've been told this lie that the situation that we're in and what's happening to us is our fault, right? And that's orchestrated, right? But the only way you undo that is by people hearing each other and having people in the room and going, wait, why is your story the same as my story? And that this is happening here, this is happening there. And just seeing that common thread that no, it's not you. There's a system, like we're living in somebody else's imagination. How do we break free, right? And then after we get that at least basic level setting, we teach things like how do you have one-on-one conversations? How do you do research meetings? How do you understand what's happening? And how do you build power by bringing other people together? And it could be something as simple as like learning to tell your story in a powerful way, understanding the legislative process, understanding what power really is. A lot of people have an aversion to that word because they think power is this like horrible thing. And it's like, no, power is neither good nor bad. It's neutral, right? It's what we choose to do with it, and that we need to want it and we need to want to build it. So we teach people about that, and then how we respond to it so that people don't respond to their triggers. And then start to bring folks together. Like there's nothing more powerful than the people setting their own meeting, right? A lot of times people think you have to go to City Hall and that's the only way you're going to make change. What does it look like for a community to go, no, like you come to me and I have some demands. And that's part of what we teach people how to do. And depend their legislators or decision makers until they actually win. So it's a never-ending process because we're constantly learning. And the thing we learned about power is power always organizes against you once you organize. So it's like learning how to maneuver in the process.
Okay, now Faith in New Jersey, what are your missions and your goals and challenges that you have?
So we are essentially a vehicle for people of all races, ages, faiths, spiritual practices, lived experiences to come together and to build power for the things that are important to them. So that, because we believe that we are building a world, right, where we restore hope, where everybody belongs and can actually thrive. Like that's our overall mission, and where we can collectively co-govern our communities. And also fighting for like religious liberties and making sure that people all have the right to practice their faith tradition. And really all faith traditions have this line of commonality around values and how we see the inherent worth and dignity for everyone. So making sure that we draw those lines and remind people that their faith calls them into the public square to act. A lot of times, I think folks have given in to some of the organizing that's happened on the other side, because people are organizing all the time, sometimes for the best of us and sometimes for the worst, right? And a lot of times people give in to these myths that have been told to us about like, well, you should just be sitting back, kind of like taking the things that are happening, when really our faith traditions call us to act for the poor, welcome the stranger, all of those things. One of the things that we believe is that no matter your race, culture, gender, that everybody deserves liberation from white supremacy and is being impacted by it in some way, shape, or form, and like hyper capitalism. And what we do is we believe that that means that all liberation is going to be through Black liberation. And in order to do that, whenever we're looking at issues or things that are impacting us, we always ask ourselves, how does this impact the most marginalized Black body? Because there's different ways, right? But what we know is because of this idea of racial hierarchy that unfortunately in the US we kind of live under, right? That if you look at a particular issue, say housing, right, and you start to think about it through the lens of Black liberation, you have to ask yourself, how does this impact somebody who is Black and incarcerated or trans or with disability? It's different than if you live in a different body. So everything that we do is from that baseline, because if we go after things that way, we know that everybody else will also become free and not have to deal with those systems. So a lot of our things that we work on fall under trying to end gun violence in urban communities. Also trying to dismantle our criminal legal system.
Criminal legal system?
Yeah, that criminal legal system. That's because it's definitely not the criminal justice system. There's no justice there right now. So the criminal to like really dismantle incarceration, and we're faith-based, right? I believe that even if someone does harm, that everybody has the ability to be redeemed, right? And what does that look like for us to really build that community that allows people redemption as well as healing? And how do we heal our communities in the process? We also work under immigration, which, by the way, if you think about immigration, what do you think about? Like, what population do you think is like probably really impacted?
Latinos.
Yeah. What if I told you, did you know that 1 in 10 Black people in the US is from an immigrant family? Mm-hmm. Most people don't realize that. So even looking at the immigration system, and Black immigrants are 1 in 5 times more likely to be deported. So looking at immigration through that lens also, right? And looking at like trying to build a moral economy, because we have an immoral one, because we spend our money on the things we value, right? So the US really values war. So you look at like right now, our current budget that's being proposed on the federal level has more money than I believe we've ever seen towards the war machine, right? So trying to shift our funds to the things that actually help us, because the reality is poverty is the reason why some communities are impacted the way that they are. Like people can't get jobs, they can't pay their rent, they can't get the education that they want because you don't want to fund it. All of these things. Can we shift the money to the right things so that we can all survive and thrive? So that is our main mission, and we do this through liberation is our goal, building power, and also we believe that in this process, we have to find ways to heal our communities and our people. Because if we get to liberation, what good are we if we're broken, hurt people at the end of it, right? Because then we'll just replicate systems of harm. So we're really looking at like, how do we build in healing into this work? And I know one of the questions is about challenges. I did mention that we are multiracial, multi-faith, right?
You did.
That is a lot of identities to bring into space.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. You work with a lot of white people. How do they respond when you start talking about white supremacy and so really Black power, empowerment?
Well, I would say we're multiracial and multi-faith. Our organization now is probably about 70% Black, probably. we do a really good job, because I mentioned that like we believe in like relational organizing, right? It's everything happens in relationship. Like I show up for you because we have a relationship, right? I understand the system and what's happening because of the relationship that we have. And that's a lot of um what ends up happening is putting people in relationship with each other, and also helping people to understand, guess what, everything is interconnected, right? You need to understand that your liberation is tied to mine. Like I say all the time, I don't need allies in our fight. I need co-conspirators. And there's a big difference. If you if you're this is the difference. This is the way I explain it, right? An ally typically reads a book 9 times out of 10. They read a book and they're like, oh man, that's really messed up. Then they read another book and they're like, man, I need to learn more about what's happening to, black and brown folks. They read another book and then they want to act. And then they want to go 2 zip codes over to go and help people, um, and save them, right? And the truth of the matter is, we don't need saving. Like, I don't need somebody to come save me. What I need you to do is go get your people, right? I need you to go and get your people, and also talk to them and find out, how are y'all being impacted by this system of white supremacy and hypercapitalism? Because they are. Like, hypercapitalism is like I like to call it like almost like a toy for white supremacy, right? Makes people overwork, all of these things, disconnect from their families, they disconnect from their own humanity, right? And once they start talking to their own families and within their own congregations, they realize they got a lot of stuff they got to deal with there. There's like there's usually like substance abuse problems. People are about to have their houses foreclosed on. Um, I recently did a panel discussion for a congregation, that was all white crowd, and they wanted to talk. They had read a book, Just Mercy, and they wanted to speak, to us about like, what can you do? And one of the faith leaders I was with asked the question, how many of you in this room have been infected by incarceration, or you yourself been incarcerated? And 90% of the room raised their hand. But it's a myth that white folks don't have that experience, right? So it's really pushing folks to, like, one, find your stake in it, work on that stake, and then let's collectively come together, to be more effective, right? And then you understand, like I say, that you have something to gain. Because see, an ally, if they're over here just helping you, when times get tough and power decides to organize against you, they're gonna disappear. You ain't gonna see them. They're gonna go sit down. They're not gonna be nowhere to be found. But the co-conspirator is gonna be like, no, I have to show up, because if you're not getting free, none of us are getting free. And that, understand that, but it takes time to build that. So like our co-conspirators in our organization are really clear on what white supremacy is, are really clear about getting their folks and holding them accountable, and are really clear about agitating and also leveraging the privilege they do have, in spaces. I think one of the magic things about Faith in New Jersey is, it's like we walk into a room. We've actually had people tell us this, decision makers tell us, like, wait, what's going on here? Because we walk into the room and it's everybody in their community. Like, it's not just a room full of like Latinos or Black folks or white folks. It's a cross section, and now it's a human rights issue. And guess what? You got to listen, because we're all impacted and we can't be split and divided. But it takes time to build that level of cohesion and co-conspiracy together.
Okay. Are, like, we're here in Trenton. Are any of the faith-based institutions in Trenton part of the faith in New Jersey?
Yeah, so we have people all over the state that plug in on different levels. Some of the congregations are Westminster Presbyterian, Reverend Karen Granson, who's Hernandez, who's amazing. We have St. Bartholomew's Lutheran Church. We have United Methodists with Reverend Rupert Hall. There's a few others, and then we have people that plug in maybe on the statewide policy piece. One of the things that we do that's unique when it comes to the way in which we organize is our congregations actually get a person. Like I give them a staff, I give them an organizer, and they actually go into their congregations and they help that congregation live out their vision and teach them all the organizing skills, helps them put together a team. We do the trainings and all of that so that they can really be impactful, because there's no shortcuts to organizing, even though people like to try and take shortcuts. But effective, really power building organizing that's going to get us free, it's long. It takes dedication. So we make sure we give our congregation somebody that actually helps them along the way, and they spend a certain amount of hours with their faith leader, the leaders in their congregation, really helping them to build an analysis and to work together with other congregations.
Okay, I see. Now you deal with white supremacy. What is your stand on reparations?
First, state of New Jersey needs to be, I hope is going to be the next place that is going to give out some reparations. I'm hoping. I mean, we are so impacted by all of the decisions that were made within the state of New Jersey. Like we have some of the largest racial disparities in incarceration, education system, all of these things, and they're a direct result due to enslaved people and the processes and things that were happening at that time. So yes, we need reparations. We need to know that that what reparations looks like. I'm not 100% sure of how it's going to look, but we definitely need to repair the harm that has occurred that starts to put us back on like some type of level playing ground. I believe, I forget what the amount is, but the amount, what was it, the median income of a Black family, I think is around 8,000, I forget, to like 200 or 300,000 to a white family. Like, if we don't need reparations, who else does? Like, I mean, like Jersey needs to be one of the next people to go for it. So we're definitely part of it. We support the Say the Name campaign. So we are definitely, actually, one of our board members, Rabbi Joel Abraham, was actually just honored at an event for his work around the reparations bill that's currently pending in New Jersey.
Okay. Well, my sister, it's been good. You all do, organizing. I didn't, I didn't realize what organizing actually was, but it seems to be a very specific skill set. Okay?
It really, really is. But you know what? Organizing is also a lot of joy, right? So a lot of people find their way to organizing, like myself, because they've been harmed, they're grieving, and they desperately want change. But in organizing spaces, you find this level of community and just joy. Like we dance in our organizing meetings. We have music, we have food. Like there's a meeting that's happening now in Patterson, and they're eating. We open in prayer. Sometimes there's poetry, and we're still doing the work of like understanding the systems to try and dismantle them. But there's also this community and love that comes with it, because I think there's one school of thought around organizing where it's like, oh, you have to organize out of your anger. And I think that that's the exact opposite. I think that, yes, we might get mad and upset, but I organize out of love for myself, love for my family, love for my community, love for my people, right? And that's what's going to keep us going. Like the question we always ask everybody to organize is, who do you love? Like that's the first question. And once you can tell me who you love, then we can talk about like, what is the world you want for them and you, right? In order to move towards it.
Where are you located?
So we have places all over. So actually in Trenton, St. Bartholomew's Lutheran Church is where one of our Mercer County organizers is located. So right in Trenton. And then also in my main office is in Rahway. We are also have space in, you can find us in Camden, Patterson, Newark. So we're all around, but you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, as well as on our website. You can get in touch with us.
How do we find you?
Social media,
Well,
also
Face-
on Facebook, and you can always reach out to our email is info@faithinnewjersey.org. So that's info at, and you spell out faithinnewjersey.org. And anyone can always follow me. All of my social media is public. So friend request me, send us a message on social, and somebody will get back to you.
Okay, my sister, Charlene Walker, Executive Director of Faith in New Jersey. It's been nice talking with you. You've given me a lot of information this evening. You've given the people, our listeners, a lot of information. You know, I'm glad to hear that there are so many people from so many walks of life fighting this fight against this system of white supremacy. You know, because it's just a horribly oppressive system. You know,
It really, really is, and I think that it's also really important for. I think we get told also often that we can't make change, and that it has to be somebody with a doctorate degree, somebody that has gone to law school. When honestly, like the most impactful people are the mama on the block. You know, you got that woman that raises all the kids. Like she is super powerful, right? It's even Pookie that hangs out on the corner. Like it's
right.
like if we all come together, we can accomplish so much change. I think we just need to remember that and to believe in ourselves, and also to understand that organizing is not something like there's a school of thought called Saul Alinsky, right? And he's a white guy that they try and credit to like founding organizing in the US. No, organizing comes from our heritage. We've been organizing our entire lives, and we're here because of our ancestors. So to lean into that and just to understand we're all powerful.
Okay, power to the people. Is that what they say?
Exactly, power to the people. And what we were saying last week was black. What was it? Black power, black love.
There we go. There we go. Well, we thank you for sharing yourself with us this evening. And anything we can do to help you along, please let us know. You know,
I will. I'm going to come and find you down in Trenton, and we can have coffee one of these days.
there we go. There we go. As long as it's decaf, because, you know, caffeine makes me go, choom. Thank you, Sister Charlene. You take good care of yourself, okay?
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
All righty. Take care. Thank you very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. You know what? We have, I tell you, like I said at the beginning of the show, we want to talk with people who are doing things. And there are so many people that are doing things. Or should I say, who are doing things? And, you know, not just, she's the executive director of Faith in New Jersey, but think of all the people working with her who are doing things and have so much to say. And, you know, oh, man, there are just so many people that we want to get in contact with so that they can share what they're doing, what their visions are, what their hopes are, their dreams are, what their love is. You know, that's what we're all about here, right here on The Case with Kamau Kujichagulia. I don't know who we have on next week. Let me see here. We have a great sister next week. Great sister. Right here from Trenton, New Jersey, Miss Latasha Burke. She's the CEO, Executive Director of the African American Cultural Collaborative of Mercer County. Whew. They're having an event on Juneteenth out at Mercer County Park on Saturday. I guess it's the 17th. So, you know, and they put on so many wonderful events in this city. So many. And she's been the head of the spear, so to speak, for that organization. It's the African American Cultural Collaborative of Mercer County. And we're talking about Sister Latasha Burke. So she'll be our guest next week. I want to thank Sister Charlene Walker for being with us. You know, she's a fiery young lady. Fiery young lady. You know, and we like that. We like that. We like people who look at problem, who look at the problem. The problem is white supremacy, the system of white supremacy. That's the problem. You know, she looks at it dead in the eye and said it has to be replaced with a much better system, a system of justice. Yeah? So that, you know, we're not doing any harm to anybody, and you know, we're working together. We're working as one instead of pulling. You know, some people are pulling here and some people are pushing here. You know, it's really it's ugly. So we really want to thank her. We want to thank her and I didn't know about organizing. I mean, I've heard about organizing committees, but you know, I never really knew much about it. And I wish I had known earlier, but I didn't. So, but anyway, we want to thank her for being with us. I want to thank everybody who helps put this show together. You know, we got Sean, and we have Al, and we have Michael, and we have Dana, who's always with us. I see. It's good. So hopefully everything will work out. So we have good people out there working very hard to make it so. Anyway, we'll see you next week again. Our guest will be right here from Trenton, New Jersey, the wonderful Latasha Burke. Beautiful sister, beautiful, but not just in body, but in mind and in spirit. So can't wait to talk with her. All righty. See you next week. Good night.